Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you. You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
My name is Mathewos. I'm a certified coach and nurse leader. And in today's episode, I want to talk to you about the importance of being coached on emotional intelligence to promote your personal and professional growth and success. So I want you to picture this. Exchange your shift, the team huddle just ended, and everyone's about to give each other a report. Except the nurse who arrived late just realized her assignment is not exactly the same as it was yesterday. And so she stomps over to the charge nurse, and goes off. So whatever happens next in this moment is not going to just impact the shift, but the team culture. And I'll go a step further to say, honestly, the organization's culture. And the other thing that I know for sure in this scenario is that your clinical expertise is not going to help you get through this, but being emotionally intelligent will. However, as nurses and nurse leaders, even though day in and day out, we're faced with so many challenging and emotionally charged scenarios, we're often not given the skills or knowledge or support to really understand how to handle these situations and how to manage our own emotions in these situations. And so today I want to talk to you about what you can do as an individual, as a team member, as a leader, and even as an organization to support your nurses and nurse leaders in developing this very important skill. Okay, so how did I get to this, right? How did I come to this conclusion? Well, I'll tell you, when I first started off as a nurse, I didn't know what emotional intelligence was per se, especially in the workplace. But I did know that some people did a better job of de-escalating conflict, or were always very calm and confident, even in the most challenging situations. I also remember very early on in my career that working for one nurse manager felt completely different than working for another. And that really impacted not just me and my team, but really the organization. And this was supported by kind of objective and subjective data. And so that's how people described how they felt working in these two different units. You would see it with turnover, and another unit, you would see it with retention. And so the signs were always there, but maybe just not the language, right? But we always know that there is someone who's a little bit more empathetic or understanding that you want to work with. And, some of the other common phrases are, oh, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. Or in nursing, I know, sometimes we'll say, oh, I'll work short as long as I'm working with, A, B, and C. And, sometimes even if you have 10 people on duty, if they're not the right 10 people, it can still feel kind of like a stressful or isolated shift. And so over my clinical career, these phrases or moments were, I would say I was cataloging those. And to also offer and add to the conversation that often people would come to me to help with like mitigating conflict or get my opinion on how they should handle something. Or I would get assigned maybe a more challenging patient, and people would say, oh, you just have a way with people. And now if you fast forward a little bit, becoming a nurse manager, that's when things got crystal clear for me. One, just with my own performance and needing to be the power of being self-aware and self-regulated, I saw, especially in my first 2 years, my own kind of growth and confidence. And what came with that was my team also feeling, I think, calm and confident in their work. And we really just kind of, meshed well together. And then as every year went on, whether that was I was supporting and helping other nurse managers and or my own team and their professional development, it really always came down to using the components or the domains related to emotional intelligence, which I'll get into in a little bit. And so I want to talk a little bit about being a nurse manager too. When I say that became like my aha moment, or when things became crystal clear for me. So I joined as a brand new nurse manager and, go from like providing clinical care, not managing anyone and starting to manage a team, a large team, a large unit that's open 24/7. That learning curve is great. And I think of the hardest part of that was just really the people management piece as well as my self management piece, right? You just like with providing clinical care, are the days long? Do I know how to set boundaries? And am I taking care of myself? Am I able to articulate my needs and to my own leader? And so that was a lot. And as I, took on kind of my own self-learning path, if you will, being transformational, being an authentic nurse leader were things that I was definitely striving towards, right? Like having a relational leadership style, but needing to really understand what that meant, what those skills were, how to apply it and develop it. That's when I really turned to understanding the work of Daniel Goleman, who is a science journalist, a psychologist who's really like the modern father of emotional intelligence. And so Daniel Goleman, two things I'll say is like, we'll talk about like his definition and the model and the framework that supports emotional intelligence. But the thing that really gravitated me to his work is his argument that emotional intelligence is actually more important in the workplace than intellectual intelligence. And I definitely, from my own lived and worked experiences, can agree with that. And so I became very intrigued with how to develop my own emotional intelligence and apply that to my workplace. Okay, so what is emotional intelligence? It's having the ability to assess, recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize, understand, and influence others' emotions, and then putting those two things together to respond accordingly or appropriately, depending on what's going on. And he has 4 domains that really kind of support that idea. And that's self-awareness, self-regulation or self-management, social awareness, as well as relationship management. And so I'll spend a little bit of time talking about each. So self-awareness is the ability to, again, recognize, be very clear about kind of who you are, what your preferences are, what your tendencies are, and how that impacts kind of your performance and relationship and how you interact with others. So that's 2 parts to self-awareness, not just being able to say, oh, this is how I am, or this is how I show up. It's like you have to know how you show up and how that impacts either your performance and or others.
Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today.
And then with the self-regulation piece, using some of that information from self-awareness is how do you stay calm? How do you make sure that you always have, clarity in what your goals are, what drains you, what fills your cup. And you really want to be able to do that, right? Because the more that you are calm, you are clear and can make better decisions and choices. And then next up is that social awareness. And this is where I start saying people are activating like a professional superpower, because once you're working on your self-awareness and your self-management, you now incorporate being able to do that, use those same kind of skills and understanding to apply it to a situation or a scenario. And that's really scanning your environment. That's really kind of understanding what's going on with other people, which then ties you into relationship management. And, we can't go anywhere by ourselves, or at least not far, not in a sustainable way, right? And so how are you cultivating and nurturing relationships? And a lot of that ties back to your self-awareness, your ability to self-manage and stay regulated and be situationally and socially aware. And so these 4 domains, I feel like every time I was having conversations, whether it's coaching conversations with my employees or even now with nurses or nurse leaders or just even clients, it usually has to do with, well, Can you help me navigate this issue, which really boils down to kind of understanding what's going on with them, what their goal is, and how can they communicate this to someone else. And we're able to really work this through using the emotional intelligence framework in a coaching session. And so I always throw questions back to the person to help them really kind of use introspective kind of query, if you will, understanding, what's their part in it, what's their goal, what's their need, asking them questions about what they think the situation requires or needs, or what will make sense for the situation. And then always talking to them about if then, okay, so in this scenario where you're maybe, what's very common is oh, I have to have this tough conversation with my leader. Okay, so prepare your talking points, and then let's also do an if then technique. And so if then is really just let me think about a few scenarios where this conversation could go in different ways and I could be prepared so I can stay calm and confident in the conversation. And, the one if then or script or talking point I always love for people to have in their back pocket is if things are not going as expected, you feel like you're about to cry or you're getting angry, you feel, your chest getting hives, then you can say, hey, I just need a moment. I would like to reconvene with this conversation, right? Something along those lines. And that when you're able to do that, you are able to, that means one, you're self-aware, two, you self-manage and handled, and we're able to quickly kind of respond to the social situation in front of you. But most importantly, you're able to maintain your relationship, especially, this important relationship with your boss, and, stay courteous and professional. And so that's kind of how emotional intelligence can kind of play out in different scenarios. And so I also want to talk to you about what is coaching. So a lot of times people kind of use coaching and mentorship interchangeably. And so what I always love to do, especially in a pre-session or first session, is really just explain what coaching is not. It is not therapy, which usually focuses solely on feelings and kind of the past. It is also not consulting, where you kind of just share your problem and someone gives you kind of the solution or the answer. It's definitely not that. And it's not mentorship. Mentorship usually is where you're going to connect with someone who's able to kind of give you advice from their lived experiences, right? And, just really kind of support and cheer you on. But coaching is a space where you're going to come in with set goals, needs, and with your coach, you're going to co-create a plan to achieve that. And your coach really should be someone who has deep listening skills, has the ability to ask you questions that really pull answers out of you that meet your needs, right? So there's this collaborative approach, but you are at the center of a coaching session. It's all about what your needs are and where you're at, and creating an action plan to really just close that gap. And the other thing that I love about coaching is, yes, there is a form of encouragement and cheerleading, but there is a lot of accountability and firmness in it. And so it strikes that great balance that helps you move forward and achieve the goals that you want in a much more accelerated way than kind of just working on your own or attending kind of, sometimes we feel like we just need a professional development pick me up, and we go to conferences or attend workshops, which are great for information gathering and learning, what are the best practices, and also great for networking. But a lot of times it usually just stops there, and coaching really keeps you in that forward facing momentum of, okay, so what are you going to do with this information? How are you going to meet your goals? And so that's what I really love about coaching. And kind of how I just gave the example, the other piece that's really important with coaching is that you have a safe space to practice and to kind of really talk through whatever you're thinking and feeling, and have space to kind of let it out, and then think about, okay, what's the best way for me to articulate my needs and make sure that I am being respectful and maintaining a relationship, or, really understanding what your impact will be. And so when you pair kind of the philosophy or the work of emotional intelligence with someone coaching you on these skills, you're going to get accelerated performance, right? Or accelerated growth, I should say, which will then lead to an accelerated performance or you reaching your desired outcomes or success. And the other piece is when you are really becoming an emotionally intelligent person, that is not only just showing up in your professional life, it also will show up in your personal life. What do I mean by that? You'll be feeling, that confidence. You'll have that clarity to help you with being a better communicator, a better decision maker. And, whenever you have those skills down pat, you're going to feel better prepared, right? To face whatever is coming your way. And so I really want to stress whether you're an individual, a team leader, a department or division leader, or in charge of a whole organization, that you really consider giving your nurses and nurse leaders the opportunity to be developed by coaches focusing on their emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent people tend to be able to create healthy work environments. And we know that healthy work environments lead to retained nurses. We know healthy work environments lead to excellent clinical and even financial outcomes. And so there's definitely a business case to it. But in addition to that, I also want to stress that there's a well-being component to that. And so in, this post-pandemic world that we're living in, coaching someone to be emotionally intelligent is a sustainable way to really commit and show that you support their well-being and growth, both personally and professionally. So what are some key takeaways for you? One, right now, you can start practicing self-awareness. You could do that through journaling. You can do that through talking to yourself at the end of the day, asking questions like, how did today go? What went well? What could have went better? What should I do more of? What should I do less of? And then you can, like I said, journal this, write this down. You can also take the opportunity to find someone that you trust to give you feedback. That could be a colleague, that could be your leader, that could be a professor, whoever it is, right? Anybody who's interacted with you, family and friends, to give you feedback on kind of how you show up in the world and impact them. And then the other thing that you can do as it relates to self-awareness is do a psychometric assessment. So this is a validated, reliable tool that will help you really understand your preferences and tendencies, both when things are going well, as well as when things are kind of stressful and challenging. And you use this as a launching pad to really understand who you are and to support your growth. It's not a diagnosis, it's just a form of discussion. Next, I would say is really be open to vulnerability, being open, honestly, embracing being transparent with your thoughts, your feelings, your needs with others, as well as being open to hear the feedback that you'll receive, whether that is from requested feedback or just that occasional feedback you get from work. And then just even the results if you do a psychometric assessment. Really just be open to that information. And then last but not least, get a coach. So one really cool thing that I'm starting to see is that organizations are hiring internal coaches. Some professional associations also offer their members a benefit of coaching. And then there's always, you can just go out and invest in that yourself. Really find a good fit for you and be clear about what your goals are and just go after it. What else can I say? I can't really stress enough that emotional intelligence is the foundation for all of our growth and well-being, which leads to us feeling like the successful professionals that we want to be, the great caregivers and leaders that we are. And so I really charge you to start your journey on developing your emotional intelligence today. I thank you for your time. Please, please, please subscribe to Nurse.org podcast, Nurse Converse. Also like or comment and share this episode. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well as on my website, Evolve, Lead, Succeed. I would love to connect with you and hear how you think emotional intelligence can help you or your team. Be well.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.